might be asking, what have we here? Well, this is the makings of a transplant, a bin transplant. And by that I mean my aim is to get those two bins that, these two on the left, these are the bins that have the holes drilled into the bottoms to allow for drainage. And the only time I've ever seen any need for that type of drainage was right after I built the first bin, and I didn't even populate it with worms yet. I just built it and let it sit and sort of and prime in preparation for the introduction of the worms. And that's the bin I always felt like just took off in the beginning as well. So modeled after that same concept, I'd like to start two new bins now, weeks before I would get around to ever populating them. But in order to do that, I needed to free up a couple bins. As you might remember, these two bins that had the holes on the bottoms were both resting inside of a catch, inside these two lower, larger tubs, and only one of them had ever collected any moisture. My decision is to now use those two containers with the holes in them to build new habitats. Long story short, my objective today is to take those two bins that I just freed up by decommissioning them as catch trays and move the populations of the bins that have the holes in them down into those. But first laying down some fresh bedding for them, some new cardboard, some new garden compost for them to be able to explore, and then place in the contents of those two bins. But my thought was to do it in a way that sort of flips, laying that bedding in the reverse order, and then once I flip it over, it'll be at the bottom of the new bin for them. So that's really the approach that I'm going to be taking. And for that, I've got some materials. I've got some fresh chopped up cardboard, got a little bit of water. I was going to wet down a little bit some of the cardboard, and I got some of the garden compost. The garden compost has been left out to freeze completely through. There's no creepy crawlies in this, no. So trying to keep my ingredients nice and clean. So why don't we get started? Here we go. Okay, so this is where I'm going to be putting them. So in the end, I'm going to place this on top and then flip it over, and then they'll be in here turned over. So why don't I start by grabbing the bin, and we'll build up the new bedding on top so it'll become the new bottom. Okay, so let's get started. So my idea was to have at the bottom of the new bin some of this fairly tightly chopped cardboard material, and that would be like sort of the fluffy lower layer. Between that and the new stuff being dumped on, I wanted to sort of lay down some of that garden compost as well, maybe even sprinkle some coffee into it as like a little bit of an edible environment, edible sort of treat of an environment. Maybe even, I think I might have mentioned earlier, this stuff has been left out in the freezing cold temperatures for a couple days. It was a totally frozen block of material. I had to chip it apart. In the end, I just let it thaw out overnight so I wouldn't have to exert any energy in taking it apart. But this is really nice fine compost that just came out of the bottom of my garden compost pile. You could probably tell just from looking at it that it's really fine. I ran it through the same screener that I've been using to screen the vermicompost. Okay. And when I flip it, I really wanted to keep this separate from the fine chopped stuff, and that was the reason I wanted to wet down some of this these larger chunks and use those in between. more or less what I was after. Now you see we're almost getting to the top. Now I did want to leave enough room to put a good thick cushion of this stuff on the bottom as the lowest level bedding. I wanted to put this stuff in dry, and that was the reason. I also wanted to wet down the adjacent layer. About this, just pile some more on here. Don't want to go overboard. Don't want to somehow end up drying the bin out. Maybe even a little bit more, just to not create an imbalance in the moisture level in the bin. It just feels like it's just right now, so I don't want to go too heavy one way or the other. So let's see how that goes. All right, this is the part that I'm most interested in seeing. I want to see these little guys when we flip it over. So let's just clear the runway here. Like I said, the other bin's going to come on top, and I'm going to flip the whole shebang over. So step one is doing this. Okay. I almost feel like I should be doing this outside just in case one of my hands slip and all this stuff goes flying. I'm going to have a hell of a time cleaning it up. Alright, so here we go. The very important thing is for me to just hold on tight. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so a little bit of fallout, but certainly not bad at all. Not everything came out. A lot of it seems to be stuck on the bottom. We can scrape that out in a moment. Just wanted to see what else we have out here. We do have a couple guys who fell out, so let's get them back in first. Let's try to level this off so we don't have anything too close to the edge. I don't want to tempt fate and have any of these little guys escape out. So could have gone more smoothly, I think. And here we go. Here's what we were hoping to see, which was a good bunch of squirminess. Yeah, I don't even... They certainly retreat quickly. You can barely see any of them already. So this was basically what I was after. Definitely airs everything up. You can see there was certainly a fair amount of remaining bedding on the bottom, including some of the stuff that's still stuck to the bottom of the other carton or the other tray. Let's see what we could do in terms of tidying up here a bit. But that's about it, I think. I'll tidy up here a little bit and prep the stage for a second bin, and we'll do it again. So bear with me a few minutes and we'll be back to it soon.